again. Well, we're going to talk a little bit now about the social impact assessment, as I mentioned, and technology assessment application. Before that, though, I'd like to show you a little diagram here that kind of puts everything in perspective. And in this diagram, you'll see, like, the fact that there's culture that you're in, there's associated ethics and moral behavior. And on the other side of the diagram, you're going to see technologies like biology, chemical, electromechanical, computer, and software. And that array of technologies is probably 99% of the kinds of things that are going to impact or interface with your culture that you're in, whether it's a corporate culture, subculture, or the community you live in. You remember, culture is wherever you are and how it's okay to behave. And we're at where the two come together in the analysis, and that's impact and assessment, and depends, of course, on where you are. The impact assessment is going to be different. If you were in a village in India, it's certainly going to be different than a city in South America, or maybe one in the United States or Canada. So you have to take that into account. That just gives you kind of an overview pictorially as to how we're doing things. You may remember from last time that we talked about the elements of impact analysis, and that included such things as siting the facility, labor requirements, fiscal analyses regarding operation of whatever it is that you're looking at, fiscal impact on the community and your culture, how marketing is going to be done, what kind of infrastructure is required, and what kind of pollutants might become a problem as the operation, the technology is implemented. And remember again, that when we talk technology, it isn't just the device itself. It goes all the way from the beginning of the basic raw materials to the disposal of the products at the end. It's like getting it from when the chemicals, the molecules first are acquired, to when the molecules are again put back wherever you're going to put them. So all these things can take place. You should look at these things at each stage along the life cycle of technology. And of course, if you want a guide for this, you can go to the Environmental Protection Agency's website and look at some of their environmental impact statements, because they do have a tendency to look at the environmental aspect of things through the life cycle of the particular technology or facility that's being proposed. So that being the case, then, let's look at some of the social impact assessment elements. And these are things, of course, that are going to be of most interest to the public, to you and me. And there's, I'd say probably 7 that I think of, but you may think of others. And as we look at for example, the solar power satellite case, you'll see what the public was interested in there. And it's very much the same as this list, although there's some that are different. In one case, it happens to be the involvement of too much government, and the other one has to do with military aspects that the public was concerned about. But anyway, the ones I'm going to give you are economic. We certainly are interested in the economic impacts, because that affects how much money we earn, what kind of taxes we pay, and so on. We're interested in the environmental influences, impacts, because that's what affects how we live, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the crops that are grown, whatever the case may be. We want to know what it does to the commercial sector. You know how it is. Sometimes a big department store will come into a community, or a shopping center will be built, and small businesses have a hard time surviving in a town where the businesses would be around the village square. Suddenly find they go out of business, everything's in the mall, or the big company has such a better marketing advantage to small businesses go out. So we're interested in the commercial side. What about transportation? We're going to have a lot of trucks coming through or not, or is there going to be noise? And how's this going to affect our social behavior? I mean, dear me, just take a look at the interface, the effects of the internet and cell phones on how that's affected us socially. There's the biological effects. Is there going to be any effect on how, birth rate, for example? Because we do know that probably the most effective birth control method is rising the standard of living. More dollars per, more personal disposable income per person that's available seems to keep people from wanting to have children because they're too busy acquiring things and position and the like. And you can look at the United States, Canada, South Korea, different places. You can look at Europe and you actually find their population's diminishing, whereas ours is increasing because of immigration. That's what saves us. And then finally, the psychological impacts that technology might have on us as individuals as well as our community. So these are the things that we will look at relative to social impacts. Now, one thing you'll notice is that you're going to say, gee whiz, Bailey, we just got done looking at what you do. The technology assessment looks like this isn't much different. Well, they go hand in hand, really, because the technology assessment is going to give you the data for the economic impact. It's certainly going to give you some data on the environmental impact and the transportation infrastructure issues. You see, those are just going to be numbers and things like that. Then in the social impact assessment, what it is that the people will see those numbers if you have, and social impact assessments done with a group of people together. And they're going to look at those numbers and go say, gee, I don't like the way that, my drinking water is going to change because it makes my life not that comfortable, or I'm worried about picking up some chemical that isn't going to be good for me. On the other hand, there's a case I might have mentioned where there was fracking going on in a small village in China. And even though they'd had explosions and the water table had been contaminated, and so the drinking water was bad and the like, this one lady who lived there said, the money I'm acquiring by letting the fractors come into my land makes it possible for me not to have to grow my own rice in this case. I can go buy it, and I like that. So I'm okay drinking the water because I like the money and compensated. And so you can say, well, that's okay in that case. So that's where the social impact assessment comes in, and those are the things we're going to look at. So the next thing we'll take a look at as to how we apply this, or do this, you might say, is we're going to look at this Ohio River Basin Energy Study, which was initiated, as you may remember from last week, by a group of people who formed this company called Save the Valley, and down in southern Indiana and northern Kentucky on either side of the Ohio River, went to the U.S. Congress, got the funds so that they could get the data, the numbers, and then seeing the numbers, here's where the social impact comes in. Then talk about, gee whiz, how does that affect my life, the way I live, the way our community behaves, and we can say, hey, we like it, we don't like it, or if you're going to do it, please make these changes. And so that's pretty much what I wanted to say about social impact assessment. We could go on about this for a long time, and it could be a whole topic course in itself. But you can, in closing, let me just say this, that once the people see these numbers from the technology assessment and whatever else they see, and they get to talking about whether they like this or they don't, you're going to have a great array of opinions. And so now is to come out with some cohesive answer to this, you're going to see why there's a need for consensus building. So with that, we'll close. And let's, next time we talk, we'll start talking about how we did this with the Ohio River Basin Energy Study.